Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, portal crumbs are falling. We're scooping them up. And Texas Tech is a top 15 national basketball program today. Why do I feel that way? I'll explain next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, my man. And today, still another busy conversation to have as we are in a fluid season. We're in fiend season, and I got an itch to be scratched once again. Few more of those portal crumbs to discuss possibly here today. And on what front, you really actually never know. I think a conversation generated around the round ball, but could it turn into an oblong ball conversation? Things tend to remain in a state of standby for further developments as we get into this portion of the calendar. And some of that we'll have happening here today. I do want to get back to some of the conversation that we sort of began when talking about future decisions for Darion Williams and JT Toppin on a previous episode. Check that out if you haven't seen it just yet, because it really ties all together with a lot of what we will talk about today and some names that are not among that group of two. Christian Anderson and sort of the next wave, as we called it on yesterday's show, the next nucleus of Red Raiders that are going to carry the load. Now, could still get some help in the immediate future from the aforementioned Toppin and Williams, but there'll be a day where their time has come to an end and we'll turn to some new guys. So given the season that Anderson had specifically, he'll get a lot of attention on today's show, and justifiably so, Chris, but he will not be alone in some of what we will mention as far as the next wave to hopefully continue to carry the standard. And I also want to ask you before we're out of here, actually about that standard and sort of the company that maybe Texas Tech is keeping now as a program, given another head coaching change and hire, and now a couple of seasons spent once again in the NCAA tournament, most recently culminating in the program's third Elite Eight appearance. We know there's motivation. We know there are resources. We know there's now proof of performance. So where does that kind of put you as far as a national rare air of sorts? I want to get to that coming up as well. But back to the crumbs. Maybe what everybody's here for, I'm not quite sure. Chris, I know we are still early for the most part within this conversation, but I'm kind of wondering as far as feelers being put out by this program. I know some of this already happened. We talked about that yesterday, trying to balance, getting ready for this time while you're still playing basketball, but all attention on it now. So some early feel on maybe some movement or some directions, arrows pointing in certain ways, whether it's players, type of player, position, whatever. Anything standing out to you so far?
Yeah, well, it's so much of these conversations are all it's like one before the other, and yet you don't know what the other is. And so, I mean, this is hard stuff to cover because there's so many unknowns. But bottom line is, as you look to portal right now, I think that without knowing anything else, you're going to have to get involved with some guards, plural, just because Chance McMillian's not coming back, Elijah Hawkins isn't coming back, and Kerwin Walton is not coming back. So all three guards, your point guard, and then a couple of combo guards, if you will, that can even mesh into a small forward type role in Kerwin's case, or in Chance's case, I guess too. So I think that's where, and I think you'll see. And a lot of programs are doing this, but this is I don't know. I can't say this is Grant's preference, but this seems to be the way that they do business. Is that you look to the mid majors and the Grand Canyons, the Nevadas, the New Mexicos, right? This is what kind of, the Drakes. This is kind of what, and obviously Fede came from Pitt, but large in part, I think that they look to, and why is that? Is it because they're really good players? Is it because they are more affordable? Is it because I can't answer that, but bottom line is you're trying to construct a roster. And I think you're looking for, and are you looking for shooting? Are you looking for measurables? Are you looking for defense? Or what exactly are you looking for? At some level, all of it. Everybody's going to have this or that about their game, and that's what's tricky about trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Because maybe they have a much better feel for the way this is going to go, so they know more specifically as to what they would be looking for. But I mean, there's some rumblings out there about a Delaware guard and a UNC Greensboro guard. I mean, some of this has been, there's a there's a variety of, and I was mentioning, like KJ Lewis from Arizona. I mean, he visited Texas Tech. And has some West Texas ties because I mean, look around at like Kansas and Arizona. I mean, they've lost some significant pieces to the portal off of their team on what you thought would come back. And we'll get to your nucleus coming up here in a bit. So it's just interesting. And again, it's all related. Fit, price tag, classification, what role we have versus what role you want. Is there I mean, so there's that's why this stuff is really difficult to try to cover and pin down, and it never happens as quickly as anybody wants it to. Everybody's ready to know what your roster is right now, and that's just not reality. It's going to take a while. And so that's why and it's hard for me too, but like, you just have to practice a little patience there. And because the guys that you're potentially in on, you're not going to be just like the only suitor, and what does that individual want? Hey, I want to be in this league. This league will test me. I want to play under this coach. I want to be located here, but I want to be paid here, but I want starter this. I don't want to be a reserve. I mean, how many shots you can let me get up? You see what I mean? So there's a lot of moving parts with some of this, and trying to, put out the old crystal ball and kind of trying to figure it out is a bit tricky right now.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And not to be Pollyanna-ish, but I know I heard you mention fit, and I was thinking about, Coach McCasland and all the ways in which he's described the right type of guy. So there's a huge character and or culture component I know that comes into this also, which takes, I guess, a little bit more methodical approach than you might think whenever you're just looking at maybe a prospect ranking or something like that, and thinking from a numbers standpoint. So the intangibles, just as challenging, or maybe even in some ways even more challenging to really get right when you're trying to maintain a really good thing. Certainly don't want to bring in something that's going to be an obstacle to progress with all the great things you have going right now.
Because I'll just give you an example. There were two mid-major types that came through here and visited. They actually showed up to Lubbock, Texas, and visited, and they were last year, and they ended up at another Big 12 school. And I think what they wanted, whether it be role or price tag, was just not what Tech envisioned. And I think that you've said, hey man, good luck to you. We'll be in touch, and that kind of thing. And we'll kind of, keep the conversations going or not going. And, you ended up having an Elite Eight year, and that particular program had a year that didn't see really any tournament play, I don't think. I did, and yet that institution was dancing around when they got commitments from these guys, and I saw a lot of announcements and like, oh, we beat. So sometimes the best guys are the ones you don't get, and that's what's tricky at this time of year, because you look around as a fan and you see, well, they're adding this, and like, oh, what are we doing? Sitting here twiddling our thumbs? So you just have to trust your staff that they, again, they're going to know more than the rest of us, and that they know exactly what they're looking for. But Grant will tell you so much of what he's looking for
First, today's episode brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades with Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. And their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from more than 400 top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn to take your business to the next level. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. That's supplyhouse.com/TM, and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with only a few clicks. Plus, use our promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's SH5 at supplyhouse.com.
Grant will tell you so much of what he's looking for is that intangible, and that how bad do they want to win? Like, are they trying to get theirs, whether it be shots or money or whatever, or how much do they want to win? How much are they willing to be unselfish and be a part of something bigger than themselves? And I think that's what he was able to kind of put together this year, is a bunch of guys that didn't really care. And so you have games where you had 7 guys make a 3-pointer, and you had all these assists and not many turnovers, and you won a lot. 28 times you won. And that's that. And so sometimes you'll get these guys here and you get them around some of your nucleus. And this is why the nucleus is important, because they can kind of be that conduit and say, hey man, I don't know if this is going to be a fit here. And he leaned on Chance and D5 last year around a lot of these guys, and they would get as much say in going, he's one that would be good here, or hey man, this isn't going to work. So just a lot going on here. And so when you see names, you see Texas Tech attached to them, that may be real, that may not be real. They could even come here, and it may not necessarily work for you. So you just have to, again, patience, which sucks.
Yes, it's a virtue for a reason. Not the easiest thing to achieve, but we all have a chance to work on it, I guess, this time of year. As far as somebody you already mentioned and looking ahead, I think there was very little hesitation yesterday in confirming that if we're looking beyond JT Toppin and Darion Williams, hypothetically, does the conversation begin immediately with Christian Anderson? I don't even know if I got it out of my mouth entirely before you were either shaking your head yes or saying yes. So I'm thinking about the future here in that type of scenario, Chris. And what I really am kind of curious about as well is with a guy like Christian Anderson, who so quickly, looked like he could really be a productive player for you and had a great freshman campaign. I know there's also, a pursuit of some age and experience now when you talk about the portal and trying to get the right kind of guys as far as the age recipe is concerned. And I kind of thought it's an interesting sort of combination you got here on your hands. In that, a really bright star for you in your program is a really young guy right now. And you're going to be trying to add to it some seasoning, I think, also in general, as you like to stay pretty old, I think, whenever it comes to adding some transfers. At least want some of that experience. And that's probably a new kind of challenge, I guess, maybe for some coaches when building a roster, because you're adding some additions that are, coming in as guys often. We've seen it here in Lubbock. You're asking like day one, hey, can you come in and do you mind being a leader for us? Could you carry some presence in the locker room? And it's not easy to do for one of the new guys in the locker room, but you'll be trying to find that right recipe. So Christian Anderson starting that conversation. Curious for thoughts on him, but also curious as to maybe who else you feel like really is involved there that we've seen so far.
Well, I mean, typically speaking, I think the teams that win and win big do have a lot of carryover from the year before. And I think that's going to be key here. I think it's some are forced into the position of like, man, we just got to like hit the reset and start all over with our team. And then you go through this process, and sometimes you figure it out, sometimes you don't, sometimes you don't figure it out until it's too late, and then you're this scary team in February or March. But it just took so much time to figure out roles and the mesh and everything on what is needed. That's why, and we yesterday we talked about JT and D5, and they are obviously can return, but it's kind of a different category there. But the other nucleus that you want to look at is yes, Christian, Kevin Overton, Federico, and then you've got some guys like EY and Mariela Kumtak and Leon Horner and people like that. But like, yeah, I think Christian Anderson is like the top of the list. It's not even close. I think he's a starter for you. I think he's potentially your starting point guard next year. I think that's kind of the view of what his game. I can't say that he's not a natural point guard in the way that Elijah Hawkins is, but I think he's seen this, from him, and I don't know, if I guess you would be comfortable saying, hey man, it's you have the reign. He can handle whatever you want to throw at him. I just don't know what are the pieces around him. In other words, what do you want to bring in? What stays? What does he need to be? But he's a starting guard for you. I think that much, and he's only going to get better, Callan. And you know this. He's only going to get better. He's only going to get more polished, and I'm sure there's plenty of interest out there regarding him. If he were to get into the portal, he would have a long list of suitors and all these things. I'm hopeful that is not even an option, but you just don't know. His family, I think his younger brother goes to high school here in Lubbock and all those things. So we'll see. But I mean, he's priority number one. Yes. What exactly and what role? I think you can probably, because the thing about a nucleus is like think about how in your league everybody's chasing Houston. It used to be Kansas's league. It's not anymore. It's Houston's league. Houston has been able to rarely, if ever, lose anybody. They've got a whole bunch of guys sitting over there on that bench that they're developing. Yes, they sprinkle in the portal additions. I mean, LJ Cryer being one, Milo Suzan is one, but most of those guys are homegrown, and they grow them up, and they're just this. So if culture is only as good as your nucleus, because if there's nobody there from a player standpoint to like kind of teach what your culture is, or this is how we do it, or this is the expectation, or oh hey coach, I don't think this will be a good fit here. If there is no nucleus back, then you're kind of left to fend for yourself, and you're just kind of hitting the reset button. So I think people may have different opinions about Christian or Overton or Federico or Leon Horner or whatever, but those guys are crucial in this game that we're playing right now of putting the roster together, just because they've seen what it looks like. They've been through it. And, you've got the new kid and Mariela Kumtak. EY would be one that I would wonder about aloud. I would be curious to know kind of what the future is there, just because I've only seen glimpses, has a hard time staying healthy. I don't know if he's ready for the kind of role, like, and really, I guess this goes with everybody. Like, what role does everybody want? I mean, does Kevin Overton now want to start and be like right next to Christian Anderson, and like you're going to lean on him heavily? Is he ready for that? Does Grant think that would be good, or is he best suited as kind of that punch off the bench? And Federico, same thing. Is like, does he want to be the starting center now, or is he okay being the backup big guy that you can play 18 to 25 minutes and he can start in spots and play in a big lineup if that's what the matchup dictates? I mean, all this is a conversation that it's hard to answer. And that's why Grant will have a much better feel for what everybody's wants and needs are and how it fits. But I mean, I just say, generally speaking, your nucleus is key, just because, I mean, if you sprinkle in the right guys, and I mean, your nucleus would be just fine if you get like D5 or JT back like that.
Yeah.
At that point, that is the least of my concerns. But for the purposes of this conversation, we'll just act like they're off to the side and it's gravy if they return. But the more real questions are on bringing them back or telling them, hey, man, I don't know if it's going to work out for you here. I just don't know what all that looks like, because I would think you would certainly want Christian Anderson, goes without saying, but I would certainly think you would want Kevin Overton and Federico and potentially a Horner and some of those guys. You got Jazz Henderson on your team, who was a walk-on. There's Corbin Green and Jack Francis, and then Mario LeCuntoc, who's on scholarship, and he's got some size for you. But does a LeCuntoc like replace a guy like EY? Is this now become the next big that you'll develop, and he can kind of take some of those minutes? And I don't know. I think those are all. But bottom line is, Christian Anderson, top of the list. What does it need to take to get him back? Because he's a starter for you, in my opinion. And then I think you know the portal crumbs. You're looking for guards right now. That may change based on what you get from D5 and JT, and because I believe Federico, the way the rules are, he's going to be able to come back for another year or have another year of eligibility. I'm going to assume that you would love to have him back for another year, but again, we're making a lot of assumptions, and we're trying to figure this out together.
I'd like to have him back, just personally speaking.
Sure.
Of course, it always depends on what options you have to build the roster with. So I guess in this era, that's part of it. Everything, again, kind of remains fluid. Am I wrong to talk about first today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money? Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for half off your first year. Maybe I'm wrong to say you want to go out and get some old, but it does seem like you want to get some experience, because I am thinking about, former conference freshman of the year coming over and being two of your biggest gets you've had. They're not exactly old, but they're also not inexperienced. So how do you describe that part of it? Is there some like appropriate middle ground of seasoning thereafter?
Well, I don't think you get caught up into like football wise. You can play that game. You can be like, man, I just need a 1-year guy, and you can do that in basketball. I think that in this case, though, you're looking for the best fit. If they have 1 year or if they have 3 years left, it doesn't really matter. What's the best fit? And again, there's a variety of different spin the wheel. What exactly is everybody's, your definition of it's a good fit for me may be different than the players on what they're looking for versus what you're looking for. And Grant has talked about these conversations before. He's like, we get around the table, and he goes, and we try to tell the truth to everybody. This is what we're looking for. What are you looking for? And if there's a fit there, then like, okay, let's try to do this. I think that you'll see this all over the map on them potential with one and done guys and potential guys with multiple years of experience. Ideally, you'd find guys that you had multiple years that you could keep and hold on to, because then you get the chance in the D5 scenarios, and it's like you really get it going and then hold on to it, and you create culture, and you have this nucleus, and it builds, and then you just kind of sprinkle in more things onto it, and like a JT Toppin, and then you go to the Elite Eight. But I don't think Grant is ever one that would like just be like, I've got to have this or got to have that, because I don't know if you want to go a whole bunch of one and done guys. That'd be a bit of a nightmare scenario for you.
Yeah.
It's like bring them all in here, coach them up, and then see ya. You're out of here. But I also don't think you purposely are like only looking at folks with multiple years of eligibility too, because there's no guarantee that you will keep them and whatnot. So but anybody in the portal is going to have experience, and that's the key, because I think that's what you're going to look to bring in. You're probably not doing any more freshmen in this cycle. It's all portal guys.
Gotcha. Okay. Before we get out of here, I did want to kind of ask you a bigger picture question about the standing of Texas Tech basketball as we sit here in 2025, or the company that you feel like you're keeping as a program, because you've just turned in, by any way you look at it, your third highest achieving season in the history of your program, I guess I would say. Certainly one of the best in its history, and you did it with a coach who's in his second year. So on the court, you've gotten it done. I think off-season wise, you've seen some quality rosters assembled. You have taken, say, a freshman of the year and made him a conference player of the year in a bigger conference. You've got proof of performance, as I've said over and over and over. So when you combine that with kind of the will, the motivation, which I do think was spurred on to an even greater degree with Chris Beard's exit. So thank you for that, Chris. And then you've got the resources that come with that. I don't think I'm breaking any news to anybody. It's a bit of a new age of not only Tech basketball, but in a lot of ways we're talking similarly about other sports efforts as well. But this era of Texas Tech basketball that we're in, Chris, easily enjoyable, easily achieving, and I would say sustainable. So where do you kind of look at Texas Tech as far as the category they're in or the company they keep nationally, whether you look more specifically at the Big 12 or elsewhere outside of your conference? Because I've kind of, I don't know, for about 2 decades, 3 decades, most of the time I've been paying attention, it felt like as an athletics department, you're a top 30, top 35 expectations kind of crowd, and probably should apply to all sports for the most part in that way. Well, from a men's basketball perspective and a couple of others, shout out to Wes Kitley, you're bumping those standards up as far as talking about individual programs. So how high are we bumping them up? What do you think?
Well, you are in a different category now than you were. I think as it relates to roster building, the Elite Eight and just being on the cusp of the Final Four, that carries a lot of weight with players and agents. And if it doesn't, they're probably not the ones you want to be talking to anyways. If that doesn't matter to them and that doesn't move the needle with them at some level, then this isn't the type of guy that's worried about winning and all those things. And so that would, but you're in the benefit of the doubt crowd kind of, I think now. I mean, Grant is now finished 4th and 2nd in the Big 12 conference and picked well below that in each case and able to, I don't want to say wildly exceed expectations, but certainly did, exceed expectations in both years. And I think that you think about it from these terms. Like, okay, well, who can you attract in the portal? Like what kind of players would be interested in playing for you? Because you can now go, I mean, everybody just watched you on national television throughout. And when you get to the point of the season where you're one of the only games on at the time, you've reached you're far in the tournament. Okay. Yeah. So that's, and your Elite Eight game, the only game on in the tournament, your Sweet 16 game, there's only one other game going on in the tournament. So that's why it's just different. And it's just that pyramid theory. But think about it. If you're a guard out there, just look at how Texas Tech plays. If you're a guard out there, look what we did with Elijah Hawkins. Look what kind of year he had. If you're a wing, look at what Darion Williams is able to do in our style of play. If you're a forward, look at what we did with JT Toppin. So like you've got any position, you can say showcase that, showcase that, showcase that. We averaged over 80 a game, and we played pretty damn good defense. Oh, and we won a whole lot, and we're well resourced, and we've got unbelievable facilities. Right? Okay, so. Then it just comes down to location or role or, whatever. But as far as where your program is in general, yeah, you've now, I mean, because I I don't know what they'll put together here, but I'd be willing to bet you that you'll get some benefit of the doubt, and not just the Big 12 ranking, but nationally. And it would certainly, it goes without saying, you will get that if like D5 and JT, one or both comes back. I mean, those are first team All Big 12 guys preseason and potential first team All-American type of players. That's how good those guys are. But I think Grant has earned a lot of street cred in the sport based on what he's been able to do in your program in general. Because you're not some, fly-by-night operation here, man. You've been to the Elite Eight now, 3 times in the last 7 years? You've been to Sweet 16s, 4 of them in the last 7 years, 3 different coaches. I mean, so you're starting to become – but like the Houstons, the BYUs, the Kansases, I mean, there's a lot of meat. And then, the Baylor, I mean, they had a bit of a down year for them, but they're still – he's earned some street cred too, obviously, win a national championship. So, but that's the company you want to keep right now.
Texas Tech is a top 15 national program. Are you flinching when I say that?
No, I mean, you were that for what, 2-ish months this year? I mean, I don't know why that would
safely in that, and I mean that's company you are keeping and sustaining as a program.
You can't.
That's where I'm viewing you.
And it's like, are you without D5 and JT? I don't know. That's the tricky
I'm not
part.
talking team necessarily, but I'm saying program year
year
out sustainable. I'm putting you in that category right now.
And some years harder than others,
sure,
because it's all about players. But yes, I think with all that you have working for you, I don't disagree with that.
Let me know in the audience if you're wincing in the YouTube comments, or shoot us a text if you're a mobster.
And that's I mean, think about if we said that about your football program, because you're not right now. You're not. I mean, maybe you should. And
well, imagine saying that about your basketball program when I'm ready for a parade because Tubby Smith just got you back in the tournament.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean that.
It's just easier to, like, I'm sure you followed the Maryland conversation with their coach leaving, and you're seeing some of these other like Nate Oates. There's some stuff out there about Nate Oates in Alabama, and it's all revolves around the Maryland job and some of these coaches being at places where, well, they're giving way more resources to football. I can't get done what I want to get done here. Yeah, same thing, and it's just, that's why it's so much harder to do it in football, because everybody's kind of pushing their chips to the table. But like I think the athletic director of some big time booster at Maryland was like, we can win a national championship much easier in basketball than we could in football. And I don't disagree with that sentiment. And I think the same thing can be stated about Texas Tech. That's just the reality of it. However, if you're not relevant in football, and if you're not doing your part, and you're not a program that people want to watch, you could get kicked to the curb in a matter of years as an athletic department.
Right.
So that's just, it's a tricky balance, but this is why this institution that we cover has really tried to take care of and handsomely take care of these 2 programs above all else, because they are the 2 that matter, and it will matter when there's the next shakeup, and there's one coming.
These are the boat rowers. And actually, if there was a group of 10 rowers, it's like 9 football rowers, and then we let men's basketball have 1 oar. But
8 to 2, or exactly. 8.5 to 1.5, or something like that. But it's pretty. But and I hope people grasp that. But I think a lot don't. But basketball is very relevant. It's just not. It just doesn't factor in near as much as the football conversation does. But I do think you can be a top 15 program, and this is more should be a Matador Mob mailbag type discussion. But there's a lot of discussion about the Big East, and they don't have football programs in a lot of these institutions, and so they can share more of their revenue with basketball only. And I don't know what the right answer there is, but I think Texas Tech will try to push the envelope with what they can do for both. But football is gonna lead the way here for sure, and it should.
That's kind of interesting, because there's maybe more of an ability to share more percentage-wise revenue with those basketball programs, but do they in general have as much revenue to share if you're not really cooking with a football program. There's a give and take, obviously, for everybody.
But think like it, and it can be a little bit. It's a lot, but it can be a little bit in these terms. Like if you're willing to share, what did we say? Somewhere between 3.5 to 4 million. If they can share 6, that can be significant difference.
True.
You know, even though it's not in the grand scheme of things, it's a small amount, but that can be a significant. That's another player or two, or keeping guys, whereas you're losing them, you know, whatever. And I don't know if I don't know if I'm ready to say that that's going to be a real thing or not. There's some concern that could be a real thing. And that's why I think the Maryland coach left for Villanova, because I think that you're the only game in town. You don't have to worry about Terp football invading in your space at all, because Villanova doesn't. They're not worried about. They're not worried about that.
The other one is Terp football invading our space. Get it together, guys. All right, Chris. Appreciate the time as always, man. Interesting insights as always as well, and I'm sure more portal crumbs to follow as we move through this week and weeks to come. Plenty of them, as we talked about on a previous episode. Interesting deadline sort of looming, so make sure you're caught up on that and catch up with that episode if you did not see it, as we got all kinds of parts moving in all directions, not only with the basketball program, but obviously the football program as well. We've covered all bases already this week, and we're still early on in it. So looking forward to what could develop before we get done with this one, Chris. Thanks for the time as always, and we'll see you for the next one.
Yeah, and if we break into regular scheduled programming to go football, and again, just we will do just that. So we'll put portal season.
Right.
It's like, it's fun, it's maddening, it's I hate it, I love it, I don't know, but that's what we're doing. So I'll embrace it and then kick it in the crotch all at the same time. But this is where we're at.
The pain is worth the gain if you get to the gain. Because you get an opportunity to either really change your fortunes in an off season or sustain your fortunes in an off season if you like the way they are headed. Thanks to everybody for being out there. Thank you all for the time. Shout out to the Everydayers and the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining that crew. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.